Good morning, Buffalo. You're listening to the Buffalo U Up podcast. I hope that you all are doing well. I'm going to ask my co-host right now, Ari Nicole. Hey, are you up?
I think so. Yeah, I definitely could say that I am up, Buffalo.
All right, now we're going to go ahead and introduce ourselves. My name is Brian Dudeman. My co-host is...
Ari Nicole.
And our guest of the week...
It's Mark Bogumil.
Mark, thank you so much for being on our podcast, man. It's been a long time that we've wanted you on. So we usually ask, what are your titles, what are your hats? What do you do in the Buffalo film community?
Well, in the Buffalo community, generally I act and I do voice work primarily. I try to be on set as much as I can. Generally, over the past 2 months, it's been about 1 month was 9 days on set and 3 days in voiceover studio, and the other was 10 days on various sets and 2 days in the voiceover studio. Trying to beat that because his work is picking up.
All right, so now we're going to jump into our first segment. The first segment is called Fan Mail. So the way Fan Mail works is you guys, the audience, will send in your questions right here to our podcast, either through our Facebook or our Instagram. We will ask those questions right here on the podcast, and the guest of the week will answer.
All right. This question is anonymous. Mark, what color are... Nope, wait, we're not going to read that one. All right. This one here from Instagram, Starstruck57. Tell us a little about your most recent role, stage or film.
That would be Twice, with Shane Cole directing and Chris Cosgrave sharing camera work with Shane. That was a very small production. I did it actually with you, Ari. That turned out really, really well. It was surprising to see what two very experienced, to the point of them being in like another generation of skill level, because they were working something like 15 years ago, from what I understand, can accomplish together between the directing and the cinematography and all the ideas flowing back and forth. It was a pretty incredible experience.
Do you happen to know when we might be able to see this?
I have heard that it goes into editing about next week. Yeah, when Shane gets some time. It's a very small production, but I'm just deadly surprised by the professionality of it.
So I guess what we can say to Starstruck57 is keep your eyes peeled for Twice.
Yes. Yeah, I'm proud of that one. Beyond that, there's a Ragdoll Assassin, which is going to be coming out. I just got my footage from that for real purposes. That's Kurt Markham. I was happy to take what he described as like this co-lead sort of role, where I play a doctor who ends up having a psychotic break and deciding to rescue a female mafia member who has been shot in the head and now can only communicate effectively through a doll with a personality.
Wow.
It's a trip, but there's a lot of really good acting in there and a lot of really good people from Buffalo.
All right, Matt, 25, Amherst. Have you ever gotten lost in a character while performing and forgot where you were for a second?
Yes. There was a production called Veronica that I was acting against Heather Dunham, where I play a charismatic sociopath that ends up on a date with a woman who this guy just doesn't want to let go. When she leaves, he ends up knocking her out and holding her hostage in the basement, and the film is about his psychotic delusions in relation to how much she loves him in his own mind, which of course isn't true at all, but we see the reality of it. And but the thing is that the character itself, he believed that she was forcing him to do this, to hold her hostage in his basement because that's what she wanted. So getting in such a deep headspace, and with all like the long sociopathic monologues that were written for this film, I lost not myself. I snapped back into it, but there were moments when I was just in character and there was nothing else in the world. That was a good film for me because of those long monologues. It really taught me how to string together long bits of text and remember them. That one still gets brought up to me. People come to me and say, hey, I saw Veronica by Amir Sklanja. This is the guy that shot it. Foxtrot Productions. And yeah, Kurt actually found me through that. Kurt Markham for the upcoming Ragdoll Assassin.
This is from Fangirl for Life via Instagram. What are some of your favorite pizza toppings?
I am a big fan of the basic pepperoni. I like mushrooms, and I am a giant fan of double cheese. What, you don't like mushrooms?
No.
No.
No fungus on my pizza.
Are you a pineapple kind of person?
No. Banana peppers.
So, Wes 26 West Falls. What do you think is the most challenging aspect of being an actor?
Staying sharp. Staying sharp between those gigs that you get that are challenging to you, and keeping your skill level raising and keeping things fresh, because I mean it's a muscle. It really is. It's kind of like going to the gym. When you give it up for a while, or you have a couple of weeks that you're off, and then you have this big thing, it's no good. You got to come in like a sharpened knife. So you have to work either constantly or do classes. Like, I mean, I think it's very important for any actor to stay sharp. Either that, or either work on your own, do your own monologues, scenes, but you have to keep fresh.
That was really well put. You put it in a way where I see it through a new lens now, because writer, director, cinematography kind of like mine. So I never like put myself in the actor's shoes. So I guess it's kind of like, if you know wrestling and you don't wrestle for a while, you have ring rust. So I think that applies to, like, if you haven't acted in a while, then you have to like remember all the techniques and tools that like you've acquired over the years. But if you haven't done it for a while, then I think you do kind of lose sight of that. So yeah, thank you for putting that into perspective for me.
It's totally like that, you know. I mean, even the ability to memorize lines, that is like a separate bit of engineering mentally that needs to be stretched and worked with. And I've gone through productions with those giant paragraph-long monologues that is like basically kind of just me rambling to myself. And throughout that production, by the end of it, I could take a glance at the paper and memorize stuff in all of a couple of minutes. And coming off just doing, say, like audio work with like voiceover or commercials, you don't get that kind of practice. Not to mention all like the different techniques that you end up using and remembering where you were before, how you felt before, and how the events of now change and shape you to make a believable character, among other things. It's pretty crappy when you get that one really big role and you're not sharpened or fresh. So yeah.
What about you, Ari? Do you have any, like, what's a difficult part for being an actor for you?
Not for me necessarily, but in general, I find the most difficult thing about being an actor is being in the right place at the right time and being seen by the right people. You need to constantly be promoting yourself because no one else is going to do that work for you. No one else is going to, so my youngest brother offered to be my manager, but like I can't like literally justify, like I just can't let him do that without paying him, and I can't afford to pay him, and even though he's willing to work for free. Anyway, that's a rare situation. Rarely are you going to get somebody who's going to offer to promote you and do all of your marketing work for you and get all of your shit out there, pardon my language, but you need to be seen by the right people and be in the right places at the right times. The more opportunities you seek out, the more opportunities that you'll get. So you just need to be constantly looking. It's a full-time overtime job, really. You are your product, and so you need to constantly be aware of how you present yourself and your image, and just that. So when the people who are seeing you at the right time and are seeing the right part of you that you want them to see to get you to where you want to be. And so I feel like the hardest thing for actors to do is just be constantly promoting themselves and getting themselves seen. It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
And that part of the work doesn't pay. The hours that you put into marketing yourself, the hours you put into networking, those are unpaid hours. But they're also necessary hours, because you're not going to get paying roles if you don't do the networking and all of the back work.
All right. Well, until next time, Buffalo, if you want your questions asked on fan mail, just go ahead and send that to either our Facebook or our Instagram. We'll be right back with Mark. Again, Mark, thanks for being our guest.
Absolutely.
You're listening to the Buffalo You Up podcast.
Hey, Buffalo, you up? We are back with the Buffalo You Up podcast. I am Ari Nicole, and I'm going to ask my co-host over here, Dude Man, you up?
I am always up. I am always ready to podcast with one of my best friends. Are you up, Ari?
Yes, I am, by now officially. And so we are going to segue into our next segment of the podcast. We call this Plug Yourself, where we ask our guest here, Mark Bogumil, where we can find your work. So any videos, any films, any DVDs you've got out there, any websites that we can find you. Do you have a Facebook? Do you have an Instagram? Do you have a Pinterest? Where in the world is Mark Bogumil?
Well, I am enjoying my IMDb. I have my name.com, which is Mark Bogumil. It's BOGUMIL.com. Still working on that one. I've been choosing between different hosting websites, Squarespace, Wix, WordPress. It's kind of a pain. Used to be a lot better at that stuff. But right now, there are some things that I'm actually kind of proud of that are available. There is a podcast called Gray Matter that I have done several episodes on with Jonathan Inbody, who is an incredible person who writes original fiction, which is somewhat loosely based on inspirations and stories that are found throughout horror everywhere. There's a lot of short stories out there, and being inspired by something is important. I don't think there's honestly like the most. Can you even come up with like an original idea these days?
Don't they say there's only like 3 stories that you can retell? It's either 3 or 4.
But he's inspired by Lovecraft and other very mental horror types of stories. But on there are a couple episodes that I'm particularly proud of. The most recent is called The Man in the Mustard Suit. And before that, there is The Whisperer in the Darkness. And in each of these, I play a lead character recorded in studio. Beyond that, I have things coming up that are in editing right now. We have Ragdoll Assassin, which is directed by Kurt Markham. We have 7 Kills, 3 Songs and a Banana, which is directed by Richard Fish. We have Twice, which is the short which we recorded this past weekend practically between me and Ari, working against each other, who is directed by Shane Cole, who shared cinematography with Chris Cosgrave, as we're talking about. Slasher Days of Summer is coming up. I played a small character in there named Lucky, who is a very lucky drug dealer who can get out of practically any situation. We have Little Green People, which was directed by Ty Shemin and Kristen Skeet. I am on a couple regional television commercials, so I mean, if you keep a sharp eye out, I might be that guy that waves in the corner, or the guy that delivers the pizza with a smile for a quarter of a second. Or if you're even luckier, the Celino ad, which I ended up doing a voiceover for at least a couple of the different shots done on that production.
Sounds like you are a very busy guy. Well, that was a great addition to plug yourself. Right now, I'm going to switch things up a little bit. So this is a new segment that we do on this season of the podcast. It is called A Hero's Journey. So this is where we ask filmmakers, where did it all start? And in your case, Mark, I'm curious, where did the journey start for how you became an actor?
With acting, I started with an improv class that somebody had bought me. Prior to that, I did a tiny bit of modeling, but, you know, back then I kind of just thought I was acting. It really wasn't at all in any way. But the improv kind of laid a foundation. The improv led to me meeting somebody that pulled me in on a theater project last minute. And that theater project inspired me to continue with theater with all these very nice people, incredible people at Subversive Theater. That turned into film with some 48-hour productions. And the rest is kind of history.
So right now, we're going to take a quick break. We got to get ourselves ready. We got to, go to the restroom, or we got to grab a drink. We'll be right back. You're listening to the Buffalo Yo Podcast. Our guest this week is Mark. Mark, thank you again for being our guest. We will be right back. You're listening to the Buffalo Yo Podcast. And we're back. You're listening to the Buffalo Yo Podcast. My name is Brian Dudeman. With me, as always, is my lovely co-host, Ari.
Yes, Ari is still up. Dude Man still up?
Dude Man always still up. And I'm going to ask my guest this week, Mark, you up?
Yes, I am up.
Nice. Okay, so this is the part of the show where we get your final thoughts. What do you think about being on the podcast? Is there any advice that you give for future guests who are going to be sitting in that chair?
The advice I would give for future podcast guests would be to have your most proud projects down and be talking about yourself a lot. Yeah, bring in a little cheat sheet of the things you're the most proud of. I mean, that could just be me, though. I would say I really enjoyed being on the podcast, and that it was a different kind of experience, run very uniquely in a good way. That's really buffaloing me up. I'm looking forward to all the projects in the future that I'm associated with actually coming out, because this past year has been quite a trip, and there's a lot of productions that are in editing. So I'm looking forward to the future.
So, Mark, we've asked you a lot of questions here today. So now I'm going to give you the chance to ask either Ari or myself a question. So, who do you choose, and what question do you have?
Brian,
Pass.
What hair products do you use?
Vote 5.
Nice.
Yeah.
Classic.
Yeah.
Classic.
No, I have no idea about hair products, man. You're talking to someone who doesn't know products at all. I think what you should do is ask the person who sells products what kind of products they use.
Well, I don't necessarily sell hair care products, but I do have skincare products. However, Vote 5 does not do justice for my hair. I find that it dries it out. I think I'm using Garnier. Right now I'm using a Soothe and Repair because I'm about to change the color of my hair finally, as we finished wrapping the short film that we were working on, and I can get out of character hair and get into my next character's hair, which is not exactly for a film, but more of a cosplay character. So, and that's just a little bit of a surprise, as there's only a few people who know of this cosplay character. I'm not a cosplay artist. This will be my first official cosplay creation in honor of the late great David Schwartz. So I'm looking forward to it. Keep your eyes peeled.
All right, well, that just about does it for this episode of the Buffalo You Up podcast. I have been Brian Dudeman, my lovely co-host.
Ari Nicole, as always.
Our guest this week,
Mark Bogumil.
And we just have one question for you, Buffalo. 1, 2, 3.
You up?
All right. With love, Mark.